sort of halfway through the block in here and asking the question, what's the easiest thing to see next? That's the question that's going to carry us through. And I'm looking down at the kind of right here where we're starting to get close to where we'll connect into the sky, into that landscape there. And this hard edge is driving me crazy. I shouldn't do this at this stage. I should wait till the next one, but I can't stand it. There we go. Now I fixed it. All right. So the question is, what's the easiest thing to see next? I have my number 4 filbert clean and ready to go. And I just see these, if I block in all this complexity right down here, as if I just block in the cloud shadow color first, and then I bring the blue sky into that, and then I bring the lights into that, I think that's the easiest way for me to handle that block in. So I'm going to start with, and it's just been easier to do it this way. I'm going to stay with our transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue shadow, but it's going to be at its bluest and lightest, value number 7 here. Let's make sure that's right. It is good. All right. Almost, those distant cloud shadows almost change to be the color of the sky back here. They're not quite, but they're close. But I'm not putting them in like I would put the sky in. I'm going to try to let them be very simple. Here we go. I'm also going to try to let those be thin too. That's going to work well for me. And the reason to have them thin again is just to show a difference in the texture. Those clouds are transparent. So I've blocked in the whole bottom of the sky with the distant color of the cloud shadow. And now I was going to bring in some of the blues, but I think I'm just going to bring in some of those distant lights. So how to mix those distant lights? Let's, this actually, I think it's going to work really well to just stay with our transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue mixture, but we're going to go way, way, way toward transparent oxide red to make sure it's warm enough. So it's almost just transparent oxide red and white. There's just a little bit of ultramarine in there. And the thing is, this is what white looks like in the distance. Very dark and warm, something like a value number 8. And the most prominent of them that I see is going to be right in here. Put it in and make it a little bit softer. You can see how subtle it's going to be back there. I'm just going to make it a little bit warmer by adding a tiny bit more transparent oxide red. There we go. Okay, and then there's just the rest of it coming down into here. And there we go. And how do we paint all those little dots back in there? I mean, there's a lot of sort of busy little cloud shapes back in here. See all that? What's the best way to handle that? Well, I am an impressionist, so I'm going to try to get away with just a couple of just daddy broken strokes back in there. And I'll leave it at that. That's that whole big shape of distant, or in this case, a little shapes for that massive clouds back there. I'm going to pick up my number 2 brush now and a few pieces of the sky to bring in here. We were right here, and I'm just going to go more Viridian for right now. just all the way over to Viridian, really. This was Cobalt and Viridian. That was this two color mixture. Okay. Just, this is something I love to do in painting skies because we'll just leave the shapes for the clouds, and it's a really painterly way of creating the busyness of all those distant clouds. You see that? All right, I'm going to cover up that brown line right there. And we get those little clouds starting to float through the sky. Break up the tail end of this a little bit here. A little bit more accuracy. All right, and as we move to the right, what's happening? That sky's getting lighter, right? And so I'm just going to add more white to it, bring it up in value. And I'm going to go back here. And right in here, we just want to see a lighter blue as we move towards that sky. And then we can come all the way over, connecting with what we have over here.
You have quite a bit of paint on your brush now?
Yes.
Okay.
Quite a bit. And notice how that, what could have been, I think, is a really complicated part of the painting really just sort of falls right into place back there. That feels like distant clouds. And the most important part of making them feel like distant clouds is making sure that they are darker and warmer, right? Darker and warmer than what's closer. And that's going to become much more apparent in the next step. Yeah, so we are still asking the question, what's the easiest thing to see next? And did get a little bit caught up in some complexity down there, but just the three steps that I did there, I blocked in the color of all the cloud shadows, and then I put in those little lights, and then I just painted the open sky around them. So that's a sort of a comfortable way to handle those. There's some refining to do in here for sure, but the big thing that I want to do is get it blocked in, right? And so we're getting closer to having this whole painting covered. If you just look at how much of the painting is covered with paint and how much of it isn't, you can see the block-in's almost done, but not done. So let's keep going here. And I want to take and make a new sort of closer white. So this was our distant cloud. Distant clouds, the white of distant clouds, as you know, is darker and warmer. So I'm going to remix the closer cloud color using ultramarine and gold ochre. Those two together with a lot of white, they make a really nice sort of cream color. It's another blue-orange mixture. But why would you want it to be a cream color? Well, because these are for closer clouds. And the closer the cloud is, the cooler and lighter the whites are going to be. So the exact opposite. As they go away, they get warmer and darker. As they come toward us, they're not going to turn neon sky blue, but they are going to be a cooler white and lighter too. And that, I think, will go right here very nicely. A little bit too cool. I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the gold ochre to that. It's a two-color mixture, gold ochre and ultramarine deep here. we go. Lots of paint on my brush, but I can actually put down some paint strokes here. There we go, and I am some more white. More titanium, a little bit more of that gold ochre. The value is going to be right there in at a number 9 in here. Pretty light. Not that lightest light, but light. There we go, that's more like it. Okay, and then we can see this sharper edge right through here where the clouds are really being illuminated by the sun. And we can redraw that in a second. And then this one too, there's a lot more light catching on parts of these.
Awesome.
There we go. And notice as we come closer and closer to this edge, it's just getting a little bit lighter right in there. And the reason is because, of course, we're getting closer and closer to where the sunlight is. Okay. And now just because of the angle of the sun, there's also there's some warmth right through here on the underneath. And yeah, this is where they go a little bit darker, still gold ochre and or gold ochre and ultramarine deep. Let's bring that across right through here. Just get that glow. Doesn't really come into here other than maybe some in behind in here, but it's really showing up right there. Maybe a little bit down in here too.
What was the mixture on that?
The white all the way along here has been ultramarine and gold ochre, making that sort of cream color, off-white, warm off-white. And then I just mixed more gold ochre and I think a little bit more ultramarine. So just changing the balance with titanium, get a little bit more color right in here. Get that glow. Okay, and so it's very tempting at this stage to really start to, turn these into clouds. But I'm going to say, I think the sky is looking pretty blocked in, right? There's refining to do, but all the bare canvas is covered. And it would be really important to just keep moving along with the rest of the painting. There is, after all, a third of the painting below the sky. And so here we go. Let's get that in. I do want to just bring that down a little bit and head off some bad drawing that I see in there. There we go. Okay, now it's time to start in, I think, the easiest thing to see next to these hills right here, and then it'll just be the field and so on. The color of the cloud shadows has been transparent oxide red and ultramarine all the way back. That's what that gray has given us. And you can just see that progressively going lighter and cooler gives quite a bit of depth to that sky right away. You can really feel the near and the far in those clouds, not just because of the position of the clouds in the sky, but also because of the different value and temperature of those grays. Just two colors, transparent oxide red and ultramarine, but also the whites, much cooler and lighter up here, much darker and warmer back there. And one thing I want you to see here is that if you think of it as a value scale, there's a lot more contrast between the light and the shadow close to us and a lot less contrast back there. So that's kind of a clue as to why what's happening is happening. As things go away into the distance, they are less and less and less and less visible. And the farther away they are, the less contrast there is. And so that's why whites get darker and darks get lighter. As they go back, the contrast compresses and compresses and compresses until there's almost none. Now for these hills here. And it's so tempting once you've got something good going. Just be like, well, we'll just keep using transparent oxide red and ultramarine. It seems to work everywhere. But let's not. Let's be dangerous here and do something else. So I'm going to take some um, pyrrole and some viridian, mix them together with quite a lot of white, and get a gray. Now, why would you switch? Well, the only reason that I have to switch is just so that we get that distinction between the land and the land and the sky. I don't think it's essential, like, it'll ruin the painting if we don't, but since we're going to be mixing a gray for that distant hill back here, why not mix the gray with a different set of colors? So here we have viridian and pyrrole making a sort of gray violet back here. We're looking for a value number 4. So value number 4 right in here. Actually going to paint that whole thing because it's getting kind of hard to see. Value number 4 right here. And let's paint it in.
Tim, I have a question. Is there any problem with harmony or unity when you have one color in one part of the painting and not in another?
If they're very strong, there can be for sure. In this case, I don't think there will be because it's so gray.
Okay,
But
thanks.
if you have like really strong reds or greens or something like that in one part of the painting and in no other, yes, definitely. You will have that where it's almost like a lopsided sort of feeling that you get to your painting.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that's unifying this painting, which we did in the beginning, is that undertone. So that's going to see us through to this is in the sunlight, right? That hill is in the light back there. And then you come over to the left, it goes into shadow, right? And so let's keep going. More viridian, more pyrrole, more viridian, and we're looking for a number 3 value right there. Oh yeah, we may change this, but this is the block in. Just want a number 3 value right in here. Now, these are distant hills, right? So we don't want to render them with a lot of interesting texture, a lot of thickness, globs of paint, anything like that. Want to make sure that they feel like they are back in the distance. And so just gonna, from the block in on, I'm going to be just softening. We're not softening, I'm going to smooth out that texture right there. And let those hills be distant. There we go. And that's a nice soft cloud shadow there too. Okay, now that's what the sunlight on a very distant hill looks like. Now we're going to see the sunlight on this grass in front. And just the way the shafts of light are falling, this is all in shadow, right? It's backlit partly, but there's also cloud shadows on it over here. So that just means this is quite dark, but then the horizontal land right here is really getting a lot of light by comparison. And show it to you in the source. Just have a nice rich green there. Very different than the painting we painted together before because there's direct sunlight on this. So let's get that direct sunlight color in the grass. And remember, I'm just going to move us a little bit of this over, but we don't really have to worry about the sky mixing in with land colors. We do have to worry about the land mixing in with sky colors, right? So you don't have to be as vigilant to clean off the spot. I just didn't have any room left at all. So here we go. Gold ochre, bismuth, viridian. Mix them together. It's a 3-color mixture here. I put some white in there. I'm looking for a value number 4 with enough of a green so that it feels like that green grass in the sunlight, but not so much that it feels like it's popping forward, right? It can't be too chromatic. And that's why I always need both bismuth and gold ochre. If you just have gold ochre, it turns the viridian into sort of an olive army green kind of color. And if you just have bismuth, it's that electric sort of out of this world green. So I need the two, and the two of them with viridian really do a great job making the right green. And let me just show it to you right there. That actually is a little bit gray still. So I'm going to liven that up a little bit more. We really have very intense sunlight. So a little bit more, both the yellows. Number 2 brush. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Tim, can I ask you a question? It's Trish. So how did
Yeah,
you
go ahead, Trish.
how did you arrive at this palette? Because essentially it's really a limited palette. Was it because you just didn't want to cart around so many colors with you when you're outside?
No, this palette, these choices of colors mostly were chosen. They were all on my 20 color palette, which is still the actual palette that I use in the studio. But it just boiled down to the essentials.
Mhm.
So that's how I arrived here. Just I taught a lot before in person with a lot of colors on my palette, and it just complicated the conversation about mixtures. It didn't really help. So this is boiled down to a cool yellow, a warm yellow, a warm red, a cool red, a warm blue, a cool blue, a warm blue, and an earth tone.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty nice. It's efficient.
yeah, and since starting to teach with it, I hardly ever use anything but this palette now because it's very efficient, and I don't really run into colors that I can't get with it. It just works really well.
Yeah, it seems really versatile. It's impressive.
Tim, did you say you also use this palette for your large studio paintings when you're not teaching, or do you use something different?
Almost always just use this palette now. I used to use a 20 color palette, but I just am so familiar with these colors now, and I don't find myself looking for, trying to get to a color that I can't reach with this palette. It just it does the job. So I use it almost exclusively now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tim, why
Stays
did you
in
go?
harmony
this is-
too.
Why did you go away from the CADs?
Um, the the bismuth and the pyrrole both are stronger tinting, or stronger when they're tinted out. So yeah, as you add white paint to them, they don't gray out as fast as the CADs do. So basically they're just stronger when you mix them with white.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, and this is a number 3 value. So just one step darker as we get closer. And then that back there was a number 4, a little bit more intensity of sunlight there. And you just paint it in as slabs there. One thing I am going to do that I haven't done yet once in this painting is just make sure there's no glare. All right. And I'm going to do that with my number 12 Rosemary Master's Choice brush here. This one. And I'm just going to, on the land, I'm just going to drag those strokes down. And you can see that it's pulling the paint around a little bit, and that's okay. I just want that glare gone, and it's okay if I get some pull marks. What I'm not doing is doing these big aggressive strokes up into the sky from the land. Are you seeing that? Because if I did that, it could work too, but it could also kind of mess up some of the, especially some of these lower clouds, which I really like. I don't want to change them. So I'm just removing the glare, but I'm brushing down basically from the top of the land down. Okay, and then I don't ever dip this brush in mineral spirits. I push it and scumble it into a dry, clean paper towel and get out any paint that might have gotten in there without any mineral spirits. Because if you put mineral spirits, this turns from a glare remover to like a sponge to wipe away everything, right? You don't want to do that. So any brush you're using to remove glare, you don't want a lot of any mineral spirits in it. So now that I've cleaned it all out, I'm going to do the same thing in the sky and just gently remove glare. Because having a bunch of glare in the sky is also not a good thing. There we go. All right. Glare removed, blocking done, ready for the next question, just about halfway through the painting. Now we're going to start asking, what bothers me most? That's the next question.